Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine.
That was George Bush, who has, of course, received much deserved criticism for doing a preemptive war into Iraq, and he made the best Freudian slip of all time.
Like literally the top Freudian slip of my lifetime, and it's not even close.
Not even close.
That was epic. That was a record-breaking Freudian slip. And his face also showed it, like, when he did that, that was like, oh my God.
Do you think he's got a guilty conscience?
Of course.
He knows.
He knows. Look, guys, the funny thing is we made that same exact point at the beginning of the Ukrainian invasion. And we said, look, guys, what Russia's doing is despicable. We're totally on the side of Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. We should help Ukraine in every way, right? But let's note for the record that we did almost the same exact thing when we unilaterally attacked Iraq, a sovereign country that had not attacked us. So, and apparently we're not alone in thinking that. The guy who did the attacking also thinks that, and he just showed it to you.
Yeah, so a few bits of context before we get to the rest of the video, because I think the rest of the video is pretty gross. And it's more about how the audience reacted to his gaffe than anything else. But he made these comments while giving a speech before the Presidential Center at Southern Methodist University. And this is an event that was meant to examine the state of democracy and the safety of American elections in the shadow of former President Donald Trump. And so while, of course, I mean, we've been very critical of Donald Trump, it is interesting how much the Trump presidency essentially like whitewashed the disastrous nature of the Bush administration. And make no mistake about it, the Bush administration, I mean, he and his cronies committed war crimes, started this preemptive war in Iraq, did warrantless wiretapping on American citizens. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, the torture, which they referred to as enhanced interrogations, the list goes on and on. It's wrong for anyone to think that because Donald Trump was so uncivil and so overtly disgusting that somehow the Bush administration was better. In a lot of ways, especially when it comes to foreign policy, the Bush administration was actually worse. But yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Just for the folks at home, in case you haven't heard of Freudian slip, it means when you accidentally say something that you actually mean. You say something wrong, but it's actually what's in your head and you meant it. And so that's why that was epic. Okay, we had done a poll near the beginning of the Trump administration of our audience asking who's dumber, Bush or Trump? Because mainstream media had instant amnesia.
Right.
Like as soon as Trump came into office, they're like, Bush is awesome, Bush is a saint. And then later Dick Cheney became a saint. And Liz Cheney is a saint. None of that is true. They're all war hawks, they're all war criminals. Dick Cheney is a torturer, has disgraced the name of America. He's a sick man with paranoid delusions, etc. Okay, so we do not participate in any of that whitewashing. We also don't do the weirdo like Jimmy Dore thing of whitewashing Trump.
Right.
Like, oh, Bush was bad, but now Trump, is better than Democrats. No, Trump has the same policies. Look, these Republican leaders at the presidential level, they're like Xerox copies of one another. But each copy gets worse and worse and worse.
That's true, yep.
It degrades and you can't tell. And the quality by the end is like a jumbled mess that goes, wind causes cancer, wing, wing. I mean, that's what it devolved to. In the beginning, when we started asking our progressive audience, Trump versus Bush on stupidity was really close. We asked it a couple of times by the end, Trump had won in a landslide. But don't forget, George W. Bush was not really in charge for the first 6 years. It was Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
That's because he's a very, very unintelligent person and he doesn't care about policy, he doesn't care about anything. And the number one reason he invaded Iraq, and this was a fascinating story, and if you know, we've been on air for 20 years, so a lot of you might not remember this. He bragged to people that came into the White House and to his office in the Oval Office. He would take them to a side room and he showed them Saddam Hussein's gun and he would say, my daddy couldn't get this, but I did.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so sad.
There's nothing more dangerous than a country led by a man with daddy issues. And unfortunately, we've had quite a bit of that in the United States, including with Donald Trump. But I want to get to the second part of this video because that's what stood out to me more. Now, just to put it in more context, Bush had just finished making this Freudian slip where he meant to say Ukraine, but he said Iraq. And then what happened? Let's watch.
And brutal invasion of Iraq. I mean, of Ukraine. Iraq too. Anyway, 75.
So the audience is cracking up. And I don't know if it's because they're uncomfortable and it's like an uncomfortable Freudian slip. And by the way, before I get to the audience, actually, notice that after the gaffe, Bush says Ukraine, and then like under his breath, he says Iraq too.
Yeah, that was actually the strangest part.
Yeah, super strange.
Yeah, why did he say Iraq too? Why did he repeat it, right? No, it's weighing on his conscience. By the way, credit to Bush if it's weighing on his conscience.
It should.
It ain't weighing on Dick Cheney's conscience, I'll tell you that right now. It ain't weighing on the New York Times conscience. It ain't weighing on MSNBC or Fox News' conscience. Laura Ingraham, who pushed for the war with great zealotry, now turning around and going, oh, I don't know, oh, Iraq, oh my God. People should be held accountable, she said. I mean, and guys, there's one more layer to this. You know, what looks like a simple gaffe, but no, there's tons of layers here. Because now MSNBC supports George Bush and Dick Cheney more than Fox News does. Fox News is constantly attacking the Bush-Cheney administration and decision to go to war in Iraq when they had pushed for it 1,000%. And MSNBC has become the establishment, so they're like, oh, Bush and Cheney, oh, they're great. And by the way, of course, Bush's spokesperson is one of the top anchors on MSNBC, Nicole Wallace.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And just to make a quick comment about the audience and the fact that maybe this is weighing heavy on Bush's conscience. Look, it absolutely should. This is not a laughing matter. Mehdi Hasan made this point during his Peacock show last night, and I think he's absolutely right. Look, 4,000 US troops died during the war in Iraq. And I should also note that hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians died as well. This was a disastrous war. It was sold to the American people after 9/11 and made to seem as though Iraq had something to do with 9/11, when in fact it had nothing to do with 9/11. And what was also sold to the American people was this notion that Saddam Hussein was hiding weapons of mass destruction. The American people were lied to about that as well. So it was a preemptive war. It was a brutal invasion. It led to innocent lives being lost. It's not a laughing matter. And if Bush somehow does feel terrible about making that decision, he absolutely should. But maybe it would make him feel a little better if he was a little more vocal about it, right? Instead of saying Iraq too, like under his breath.
Yes, that would be great for history. So guys, one last thing, because Anna made such a good point there. Everybody talks about weapons of mass destruction and how, and that's where the New York Times says, oops, we got it wrong. We just took garbage propaganda from Dick Cheney and printed it on the front page like it was actually true. Do they go that far in a mea culpa? No, but they generally admit that they got it wrong. But that's a little bit of a distraction. The main reason that Americans were in favor of attacking Iraq is because they thought Saddam Hussein had attacked us. In fact, when we went to the war in Iraq, a poll was taken, 69% of Americans, that is 7 out of 10 Americans thought that Saddam Hussein had personally attacked us on 9/11. Now, no one actually thinks that's true. And so the press didn't think it was true either. So how did 7 out of 10 people get that impression? Because the press never corrected Republicans as they said it over and over and over again. They thought it was rude to correct people in power when that's supposed to be their goddamn job. So that's how they helped Republicans do propaganda to trick the American people into thinking Iraq attacked us when everyone in Washington knew that they had not attacked us. The last culprit there, of course, is the Democrats, who never even bothered to speak out against Bush and say, hey, wait a minute, Iraq didn't attack us. Why are you saying that? As usual, cowards and weaklings. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.